Okay, so today's the day we get this rifle finished up. This is my AR308 build using New Frontier Armory upper and lower receivers. And I just got to finish up a couple things on the lower and get this muzzle device onto this Wilson combat barrel. And I've decided to go with a jam nut. So I'm just going to be talking about the jam nut and things you might want to watch out for if you're going to use a jam nut. I know there's many other ways of doing this. There's peel washers, there's shims, there's crush washers. Depending on whether you're going to run a can, what type of Loctite, rock set. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways to go on this, but I'm using a jam nut today, so we're just going to talk about the jam nut and what I'm watching out for. Okay, so on this Wilson combat barrel, you can see where if you just kind of casually look at that, you think it's a relief cut, but it's not really a relief cut. They just stop threading. But if you look at the top here, this last thread, it sits lower than these other threads, so you may not get full engagement. So I guess you could say, yeah, that's kind of like a relief cut. And it looks like you're going to lose about a thread of engagement up against the barrel shoulder. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the jam nut I'm using, which is this JP Enterprises. And it's got 5 threads, and they run the threads all the way into the face of both sides of the jam nut. And so is that going to be an issue? Well, once I spin this jam nut on, you'll see that it's not an issue at all, that there's 5 threads in here. So even though I might end up losing a thread here, I'm still going to get about 4.5 threads of engagement with the jam nut. And for this application and the amount of torque and whatever I'm going to be putting on a jam nut up against the A2 bird cage that I'm running, 3 threads or more is plenty for this application. So I'll spin the jam nut on, and you'll see that it butts right up against the barrel face there. Okay, so you can see that the jam nut goes right up against the barrel shoulder. Just a very slight amount of daylight up here at the top, the way they machine the radius of the jam nut. But otherwise, it's hitting the barrel shoulder, so it's a nice snug fit between the jam nut and the barrel shoulder. And then what I try to do is when I get the muzzle device on there, I try to get the muzzle device timed, indexed, or clocked to where there's minimum or no gap up against the barrel shoulder. And that's just the way I like to do it for cosmetic reasons. Now, if you have a barrel that has a larger recess, or you just want to get more than 4 threads of engagement, you're going to be running your barrel nut more in this area, and you're going to have kind of a gap, which I try to avoid. I don't like the gap. And like I said, that's just for cosmetic reasons. In this application, if you got 3 or more threads of engagement, you got plenty. But we're going to try to avoid that gap. Okay, so right now it's just the jam nut and the muzzle device. Wilson did a pretty good job of getting their logo lined up with the center of the barrel. Okay, so that's the center slot, and we'll just keep going and see where we end up. Okay, well, that's kind of close. 5 slots, there's 1, 2. That 3rd slot needs to be in the center, but you can see that it's kind of loose. Now I could just take the jam nut from here and tighten it up, but like I said, I got a little bit of OCD, and my goal is to try to keep the gap back here to a minimum to where you can just neither not see it at all, or you're just gonna barely see it. So in that case, we're gonna cheat a little bit. I know this is overkill. Some of you guys are just saying, just tighten that jam nut and don't worry about the little gap in the back, but it's not how we roll around here. This is a 5,000 shim. It's part of a Surefire for putting a can on. So let's see if this 5/1000 gets us where we need to be so that we have a minimum gap in the back. Okay, so there's 1, 2. We need that center one right here lined up. And now we are there. So I can snug this on just the way it is and get this slot lined up with the center. And then I can come back in here and put a little more oomph on the jam nut. And there will be little to no gap showing behind that jam nut. Does any of this really matter? No. Like I said, that's how we roll around here. All right, so I'm gonna get this all cleaned up. I'm gonna put a little Loctite on it also. Not that I don't trust the jam nut, but we'll get everything centered up and then show you the end result. Okay, we are on about as straight as it's gonna go. If I hold this up to the light, just a certain, you can see about maybe a 1 or 2 thousandths gap back here. But if you're just looking at it from casual observation, even though there is a very, very slight gap back here, it's imperceptible. So we're on there. I probably ended up putting about somewhere between 8 and 10 pounds, foot-pounds on there. And if I don't need to go more than that, then we're not going to. Plus, I used a little bit of my new favorite Loctite. This has the same temperature rating as red and the same holding strength as red, but it does not require heat to get things back apart. So this particular orange is one of my new favorites instead of the blue, and going with the red. Okay, so we're moving on to the lower now. And all I got left to do is put the trigger in and these bolt release or bolt catch mechanisms. Now, the one that says KAK on it, that was part of the New Frontier Armory lower parts kit. The one on the left, I ordered directly from KAK, and there's no logos on it anywhere. And the reason I decided to order another one is this one over here that I got in New Frontier Armory looked like it was cast. And then when I ordered this one from KAK that does not have their logo on it, the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking that it's also cast. And these are known failure points, especially on the AR308. You've got a heavier bolt carrier group slamming up against this thing. And they've kind of known to fail once in a while. So this was one of the areas I wanted to make sure that I put something in that was going to be able to handle the load. And so what I ended up doing was I went with Wilson Combat. And we're going to put that in there and see if it fits. And I don't know how well the camera's going to pick it up, but theirs is made out of S7 tool steel, double tempered Rockwell 47 to 51-ish. So this is going to be stronger for sure. Like I said, my suspicion on these two from KAK is that they're cast. And like I said, this is the one I got in the original parts kit. And you can see that the one I ordered directly from KAK that does not have the logo, I mean, it looks a lot beefier. There's some dimensional changes. Now, I tried both of these in the lower, and they both fit. They both looked like they were going to do what they were supposed to do. But I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but even though this looks beefier and everything about it, less of a cutout here, it's farther away from the mounting hole, less chance it's going to break maybe, I don't know. But if you look at all the dimensions, where this butts up against the magazine on your last round to hold the bolt open, everything looks beefier and bigger on this, but just casual observation to me, they both still look like they're cast. Let me see if I can get these side by side. All right, hold on. All right, sorry about that. So the one that came in the kit that says KAK on it and the one on the right now, you can see that the one on the right is it's a little beefier and it looks like it should be stronger. But seeing how I think both of them might be cast, we're going to go with the Wilson Combat. So I'm going to get the Wilson Combat installed and we'll see if it fits. And see if that all works. Here's another shot where you can see the difference in the tab sizes for the magazine. Okay, so on the left again, KAK, the one I bought directly from them. The one in the middle that came with the new Frontier Armory kit, and Wilson Combat. Wilson Combat's got a fancier little button. All right, let's get that thing in there and see if it's going to work. Okay, so manually, I can't see any reason why that ain't going to hold the bolt back. Plenty of engagement. I'm going to put a magazine in here. I don't have the spring or anything installed. This is just kind of a dry fit to see where we're at. And I'll put a magazine in here. And I'm going to put the two halves together off camera because YouTube will get excited. And then we'll see how the bolt interacts with the Wilson Combat. Okay, we're going to put an empty magazine in here. See if we have any hold open on the last round issues. I'm going to do this part off camera because it's a little too hard for me to hold the camera and rack the slide itself, but I'll show you if it does hold open. Okay, so it did hold open on the last, simulating a last round on the magazine, but you can kind of see where that tab is engaging the magazine. It's not quite where I think it should be. I mean, it works. I'm going to stick a mag pull in here and see if there's any difference. This is I don't know if I just mentioned it, but this is a D&H magazine. I don't think it's going to make any difference. We'll find out. Okay, so I got this mag pull in there, and you can see where, you know, it's pretty much the same issue, that the tab on the is just maybe halfway on there, just kind of catching the back corner of the magazine. I mean, like I said, everything seems to be working, but I'm going to stick one of the other ones in there, the KAKs, and see if that tab ends up more in the center. Okay, so that was the KAK I bought directly from them that did not have the logo on it. And you can see the tab that comes down on top of the magazine follower is more centered. And the Wilson Combat was kind of, even though it worked, it was sitting more on top of the back of the magazine. So we're going to go with the KAK. In this particular receiver, the Wilson Combat did not work out. Okay, Wilson Combat, bolt release catch that didn't work in my receiver. I see you gave yourself a way out. Compatible with all forged and most billet lower receivers. Well, apparently mine is not one of the most. Okay, bolt catch, bolt release installed, issue resolved. Getting ready to put in Wilson's trigger. Now, I put one of these in one of my Aero Precision builds many, many years ago. And these drop-in triggers, because of where he put his spring detents to catch the groove in the pins, these pins used to be proprietary. But now I've noticed that the grooves, some better lighting here, that the grooves are in the same place. His original design, the grooves were not in the same place, so you could not use mil-spec trigger pins on his trigger. But it looks like he maybe has changed the design a little bit, because these look identical now. So that's the little spring-loadeds that catch the groove on the pins to keep them from walking out. And one of the pluses to this is because he spring-loads the whole module, you can slide this in under your selector without having to take all of this apart. So we should be able to just slide this in there, put the pins in, and we're done. This rifle is done. Okay, so something I forgot to mention. Some trigger pins will have the grooves cut on both sides so that they're not directional. It doesn't matter which way you put them in. On an AR-15 mil spec, it doesn't matter if you have a single groove or 3 grooves. You can put them in either direction. But like I was saying earlier in the clip, because Wilson puts their capture spring on the right side, then that means this groove has to locate into that. So now these become directional. And so we're going to put it in from the left side of the receiver and shove the pin into the right side and engage in the little spring detent. Okay, his tensioning springs underneath the disconnector or safety selector tab, whatever you would like to call that, on the back of the trigger, they're a little stiffer and put up more of a fight than I thought they would. So in order to get both pins started, I just knocked them in until they just started touching the other side, and then we'll get them in the rest of the way. But if you put one pin in completely installed and then try to put the next pin in, it's going to turn into a fight. Okay, so like I was saying earlier in the video, at least I think I said it, Wilson Combat trigger pull for this particular model is 3.5 to 4 pounds. It's very smooth. There's just no slop. There's no creep. It's a nice trigger. And I think I said I installed one of these in an old Aero Precision build I did years ago. And overall, pretty darn happy with the trigger. So anyway, I've done all the safety checks. It's on safe right now. We're cocked, ready, cocked and loaded. I did all the reset, did all the checks. Everything works great. So this rifle is pretty much completed. All right, we're going to put the two halves together off camera because, like I said, YouTube will get excited. And we'll just kind of do an overall function check of everything and give you a look of the completed rifle. Okay, so a few videos ago, I showed you how I ended up with this. I don't even know if you would call that camo or what you call that. I bought this in a box where the outer sheathing was marked black and the inner main box that this was housed in was marked black. And when I pulled this out of the box, this is what I got. This urban camoed, whatever the hell it is. Anyway, when I first saw it, I'm like, man, I don't know if I like that, but I'll tell you what, honestly, it's starting to grow on me. I think I'm just going to keep it. All right, well, here we are. The New Frontier Armory AR308 build is now complete with just one thing left to do. And before I take it out to the range, I'll do part of the range testing video will be, I'll go over everything that I did during the build. If I remember right, this is video 9, and this completes the Put It Together series. But we'll probably do another video or two actually test firing the weapon. And that should be coming up pretty soon. Show the other side here. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think about that buttstock. Like I said, when I first put it on there, I'm like, no. But it's starting to grow on me. All right. Pete, North Las Vegas. Over and out for today.